Good morning, I'm Jim Csek with NowMedia. On the phone with me, Iain Burns. We're missing his little image in the corner there, but he is on the phone with me. This is the day after the election, the day after tomorrow. Liberals win. Jagmeet Singh resigns. Pierre Poilievre loses his seat. And Alberta wants a meeting. All that and more on the Really Big Show this morning. Nice day in the Okanagan. 12 degrees right now. The traffic flowing nicely. How does it look out there in the nation's capital?
Not quite as good. Zeus has expressed his dissatisfaction with the election and is sending a potential tornado to Ottawa. We just got the alert.
Oh, no
So
way.
we'll have to wait and see. That might destroy Parliament for all we know. Let's hope not.
There's been so many people reaching out to me, and the only thing that I can offer them, as I said, and I don't know if this is, God may not always send you what you need or what you want, but He will send you what you need. I'll take that from what you want, and there you go.
What we need maybe is a tornado. Let's see. Let's hope it doesn't destroy my house.
The election results by the numbers. By the numbers. Carney last night, it looks like right now it's a liberal minority, and that was called early. The unofficial results, that it is a liberal minority right now, but there is a few seats still to be decided, kind of thing, or that the Liberals are leading in 6, Conservatives still leading in 4, and the Bloc leading in 1, and NDP is leading in 3 still. So there's still some numbers to be decided.
I mean, yeah, it could still change quite dramatically, couldn't it? It's so tight, and that's just like the fact that we're still talking about the nature of the government now. We still don't really know. Tells you everything that you need to know, not just about this election, but about Canada in general. Really, it's sort of cut right down the middle. You can barely tell the sides apart. It's a very profoundly divided country.
Yeah, and even the like the seats, even though the Liberals have the edge in seats right now, a lot of those seats are won by mere slivers.
It reminds me, and it did all night last night. It reminded me a lot of the BC election, where it's just these absolutely crazy tight races, where sometimes it was like a few dozen votes that seemed to be in it. And obviously, once again, one of those ridings is Kelowna, which was, one of the closest ones in the BC election. But there's obviously, they're just about evenly matched, aren't they? The two teams, as it were, the Liberals and the Conservatives, and then also the NDP and the Conservatives in that provincial election. And Mark Carney alluded to that in his speech. He acknowledged that, as he said, something along the lines of many millions of Canadians did not vote for me. They vote for somebody else. I mean, they say that kind of thing all the time in victory speeches. It's just kind of a cliche at this point. But I feel like he really, if he doesn't actually believe that, then he should, and he's gonna have to learn to believe that soon, because this is not like a resounding endorsement of the Liberal Party or of Mark Carney. This is kind of just squeezing your head over the finish line ahead of the next guy. It's so tight that he absolutely must govern from the centre. He has no choice. I think he must bring in the other parties, and that's going to include the Conservatives. He's going to have to be sort of quite. He's going to have to work with everybody, and he's going to have to appeal to all the country. Otherwise, he's going to be toast pretty quick, I reckon.
Yeah, so the Conservatives had just under 8 million votes, and the Liberals with 8.3 million votes in total, and the Bloc with 1.2 million votes, and NDP with that's the real story of the evening. The NDP just collapsed on itself with 1.2 million votes as well, and the Green Party with a mere 238,000 votes, just ahead of the Why are they still doing this? The PPC at 139,000 votes. The Green Party as well. At some point, it looked like the Green Party might have had the hammer last night. With like they would have that would have been the worst case scenario for Canada for sure, if they had to form a minority government with the NDP and the Green Party.
Yeah, and I mean the NDP there, you mentioned that it was a bad night for them. Obviously, they lost their leader, but they've also, it looks very likely, almost certain that they're going to lose party status as well. In fact, that they might well have officially lost it. So
That might be the end of that party.
that's tragic for them. Yeah, exactly. And there's already chat there. I've already seen people discussing the possibility that those, whatever it turns out to be, 7 or 8 MPs that the NDP gets, that they might just be absorbed into the Liberal Party. They might just formalize that arrangement that they've had for so many years.
Yeah, I mean that was to the Liberal benefit, getting all those NDP votes for sure. That was what pushed them over the edge.
Well, yeah, I mean, you look at the Tories; they've increased their seat number by 20 or so. They've increased their vote share by about 8 or 9 percentage points. The Tories, they've done pretty well, and it's like we said many times when we were looking at the polls, the Tories didn't really lose support when they were 20 points ahead to now. They haven't really lost very much support. What's happened is that the NDP and the Bloc have basically, well, less so in the case of the Bloc, but their vote share has collapsed, and it's all pretty much gone to the Liberals. And yeah, so the Liberals have increased their vote share by something like 11 or 12 percentage points. It's a huge boost for the Liberals, and it's Carney and Trump. I mean, we saw this coming, didn't we, months ago? And this is just a sort of validation, I think, of what we already saw.
Yeah, and here it is. Alberta, the Conservatives won 30 of 37 ridings. Saskatchewan, they've almost swept. They have 13 of 14 ridings. BC definitely. We said it was going to come down to BC, and BC definitely. Conservatives only won 20 of 43 seats. So if they would have done, like 20 seats, would have been huge out here in British Columbia. And then we have that map that's up there too, and just showing you the split and divide. Like all of Western Canada, including the territories, there's only 107 seats, whereas Ontario and Quebec really carry the hammer for Canada.
Yeah, well, Quebec. I mean, it's all about Quebec, isn't it? I think this one they went heavily for the Liberals.
Mm-hmm.
Ontario, actually, the Tories did well in Ontario. They actually won, I believe, what's it, 12 more seats this time around. So they can look at Ontario as a bit of a success story, but it's Quebec. Quebec, as usual, it just seems like it's just that it's written in the DNA of this country, isn't it? That Quebec will be the decider always. Everything seems to revolve around that province, and I suppose it's been that way for 500 years or something like that. If you look at New France and all the rest of it, but yeah, they continue to be all important, don't they? The Quebecois.
There you go. So that is the fourth term for the Liberals, and two of them minority, one majority. The first one majority in 2015, and then two minorities. And again, we still don't have a definitive answer on this result, but it looks like a Liberal minority. And Elections Canada resumes that vote here this morning, counting, and there'd be special ballots that are cast by mail and who are away from the riding. So those ballots are to be counted. So there is some mail-in ballots that are still to come, and there's still some ballot boxes that are not counted as yet as well. So it is not over, especially the riding like the Tracy Gray, Stephen Fuhr riding. There's like 140 votes or something like that separating the two.
170 was the last.
70. It was down as low as 60.
So I don't think they haven't started to count again.
It was down to 60 at one point there too. So it's been kind of like very tight though, very 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 tight, and a huge turnout though too. Like the numbers were crazy for that riding, as far as turnout goes, eh?
Elections Canada reckons about 65% for that one in the end. So it seems to have
Yes.
calmed down a little bit. Overall, that's about what it was as well, federally, about 65%. So all the chatter about how this was like a huge election and everybody knew it and there was going to be a big turnout, apparently the Canadian electorate didn't get that memo and they didn't really bother to come and vote in substantially bigger numbers than usual.
World leaders react to Mark Carney's win.
Emmanuel Macron is absolutely delighted. He's the happiest.
What's
He's the
that?
happiest guy in the world right now.
There you go. He's got a new pal.
I guess so, yeah, and that is right. That's exactly right. Macron looks at Carney obviously as like a sort of spiritual brother on the other side of the ocean there, and I think that the Macrons of this world were felt a bit like an endangered species in recent years, especially with the toppling of the Democrats in America. I think they were, they're a bit worried, but now they've got a little gang. They've got Keir Starmer in the UK. They've got Macron still for a little bit longer. Now they've got the Carn dog. So they can get a little centrist team together, though I wouldn't call them centrists, but I guess that's what they call themselves. This kind of the post-Cold War liberal order lives on in that little trio of brothers.
Yeah, and then a conservative strategist says Poilievre's biggest error had nothing to do with Trump.
Yeah, I mean, this is that same guy, Corey Ten Eyck, who I think is very astute actually, and he's clearly a very sort of smart and knowledgeable person, and I think he gets more things right than he gets wrong. But I'm not sure about this one. This seems a little bit far-fetched to me. His basic argument here is the Poilievre kept on hitting Trudeau again and again and again and again, to the extent that he sort of killed Trudeau's career and he forced Trudeau to resign. And Ten Eyck now is saying that that was an error because Trudeau was the goose that lays the golden egg because he was so unpopular and he was so bad at politics that so his argument tonight is that they should have actually tried to preserve Trudeau. They should have done what they could to keep him in power because then they would have won a majority. And that's a little bit of a sort of strange argument, I think, because
Yeah,
obviously your job as the opposition leader is to put pressure on your opposite number, the prime minister. That's your job.
yeah.
So it's kind of like saying Poilievre shouldn't have done his job, or he shouldn't have done his job as well as he did. I mean, maybe in retrospect you can kind of make that argument, but it just seems a bit sort of far-fetched to me.
But on the other side of that, though, too, like there was a lot of stuff going on in the back, with propping Carney into that role too. There was a lot of talk from the Liberals way back before Justin was going to resign. I mean, there was a lot of talk because the poll numbers had been slipping for quite a while for Justin Trudeau.
Yeah, but it was a series of really catastrophic polling, wasn't it? And then that
Yeah.
the GST holiday and that's what soured it. And then obviously when he fired Chrystia Freeland, but that was all in the context of the pressure that was being put on him by Pierre Poilievre. I mean, so the argument is, I guess, that he should have just taken his foot off the gas a bit, Poilievre. But I mean, that's funny. I mean, that's like asking a horse not to race or something, isn't it? It's like, how are you gonna? It's a funny one. It's a funny, but I mean, obviously, it's in an abstract sense, that's completely accurate. It is true. If Trudeau had been in power
Oh.
for this election, then there would be a Conservative majority. I think that is correct. But I mean, this idea that Poilievre should have kind of like protected Justin Trudeau, it just seems that just seems like nonsense to me.
And then there's also talk that he shouldn't have went so hard on Jagmeet Singh too, and he basically destroyed both Justin Trudeau and Jagmeet Singh, and actually he did that so well that it actually hurt the Conservatives. You could argue that as well, because Jagmeet Singh, I guess if there's poetic justice for for the Conservatives is that Jagmeet Singh resigned as leader last night as well. So Pierre Poilievre successful in removing both Jagmeet Singh and Justin Trudeau, but not the Liberal Party machine.
Yeah, well, he was, in that sense, if you follow the Corey Ten Eyck line, he was kind of outwitted in the sort of political machinations that go on in Ottawa, and he didn't see this one coming. But this one, I mean, it was obvious why he attacked Jagmeet Singh, because it was a minority government propped up by Singh. It was in reality, it was a coalition, and he was the weak point. He was the underbelly of the beast. So it made sense for him to attack Singh, because that was the only way to get an election when he was 20 points ahead in the polls. So that kind of made sense. But yeah, they kind of did they arranged it, didn't they? The liberal machine, and I guess you could include Singh in that. They arranged it perfectly, didn't they? They waited just long enough, and they brought in Carney at just the right time. So he had long enough to kind of introduce himself a little bit, but not so long that people would begin to be sick of him and dislike him and get to know him too well. And then they cashed in on the whole Trump business. I mean, in terms of just like
You can switch that slide.
political strategizing, that is, they did a superb job, didn't they? The Liberals. You've got to kind of admire how well they
And
arranged this. They
you and
did
I
it perfectly.
You and I have talked about that many times, how the Liberal machine, the marketing machine, the Katie Telford, obviously their strategists are a step ahead of everybody else. Jagmeet Singh had a couple of parting shots as he walked out the door. He said the Bloc is basically a useless party. They had the past 3 years of minority government and literally did nothing for people. They can point to nothing they've achieved in a minority government where they had the balance of power. They couldn't negotiate anything, they couldn't force anything, they got nothing done. And this is the part that I think you're going to have some comment on. I think what Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives are proposing is incredibly dangerous. He wants to cut and slash things people need. He wants to divide our country. He wants to slash and cut the CBC, and we need independent public journalism. Any comments on independent public journalism?
I think what he has in mind there is like a few of those like ridiculous tiny magazines that knock out 10,000 word stories about how evil fossil fuels are. They do exist. They're heavily subsidized by the taxpayer. I think that's probably in his mind. That's what independent journalism is. Independent journalism isn't like, Blacklock's, for example, which puts pressure on him, or did when he mattered. But yeah, there's another line in this story, which is that well, it's from last week, where he explained his reason to not trigger an election earlier. He said, "I could not stomach the idea of Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives forming a majority government." I mean, that Singh's undoing, I think, is that he quite obviously chose a side, and he chose the Liberals. He's basically one of the sort of most useful MPs the Liberals had in the last Parliament, and that's why his party just got annihilated. Because what's the point of voting for the NDP if the leader of the NDP is basically a Liberal and does the bidding of the Liberal Party? And that's what they need to be careful of. If they're going to if they're going to do it again, if the NDP are going to try and continue as a party in this Parliament and they're going to do business with the Liberals again, they should be very careful, because that will be the end of them. That will be their extinction.
Yeah, and then on independent media, there was a path forward for independent media in the Conservative platform they were going to repeal Bill C-18, and they said that they would fund independent journalism, and they would also spend federal funds on local independent outlets. The platform for media from the Liberals was to increase the funding for CBC. That's all we know so far, although local candidate Stephen Fear has said that he would like to see Bill C-18 repealed as well.
Carney mentioned the CBC once again by name in his victory speech. And when he was talking about the great institutions or something, the great Canadian institutions, and that was pretty
Yeah.
much the only one that he mentioned. He has he has a sort of, it seems to me, a profound love of the CBC. He seems to really particularly like that institution.
Well, I do.
So yeah,
It,
that's
it
where all the
does seem
money's
to
going
be.
to go.
It does seem to be a relationship that pays dividends for both.
Absolutely, there's quid pro quo there, isn't there? And both parties are quite satisfied with it, I would say.
They definitely. There you go. The National Post putting out this little tweet here saying Albertans say they're serious about separation after that Liberal win. And then Daniel Smith putting out a statement as well this morning, congratulating the Liberal government, but also and also congratulating Pierre's vision for a safer, more affordable, united, and prosperous Canada, but also saying that her government will be holding a special caucus meeting this Friday to discuss this matter further. They want a meeting. They want to know the path forward for Alberta.
Well, look at that. The line there that I think is most important is, I will not permit the status quo to continue.
Uh,
I mean, that's very much to the point. She's saying if it's going to be like the last 5 years, she is going to do whatever it takes. She's going to defy the federal government again. She's already done it a few times, but I think she's going to feel emboldened, isn't she? And the other thing that she says, which I think is quite accurate here, though, if you take out the partisan language, she says Mr. Poilievre's vision for a safer, more affordable, united, and prosperous Canada drove the policy debate in this country for the last several years. That's accurate. I mean, like I say, other than
yeah.
the partisan language, make of that what you will. But it's true. Pierre Poilievre has driven the debate with carbon tax, with crime, with the economy, um, standard of living, housing. You know, to a much lesser extent, freedom of speech and things like that. Poilievre is really. I said this. I said this ages ago. He's he's been one of the most effective opposition leaders that I've seen anywhere in any democracy in the last, I don't know, 20 years or something like that. But it's so strange because he's been so good as an opposition leader and yet not very good at elections, and he hasn't won
Yeah,
the election.
so he got the prime minister to leave in tears, and he got Jagmeet Singh's party basically annihilated, and including the resignation of Jagmeet Singh. He got rid of the carbon tax at the pump. He got them to get rid of the capital gains increase in the capital gains exclusion rate. Yeah, so for as an opposition leader, highly successful, and they did get a lot of the vote, and a lot of these ridings that did go to the Liberals or are going to the Liberals, they're slivers. So yeah, it's and if it wasn't for Donald Trump, if it wasn't for Donald Trump meddling in our election, which way do you think this election goes?
I think there's no doubt that
Yeah,
Poilievre now would be prime minister with
yeah.
quite a lot of seats,
So then one has to
a
ask
majority.
why Donald Trump has been interfering in an election other than to cause disarray in Canada, and this is exactly what we're seeing from Daniel Smith here. So watch for that rhetoric to heat up with Donald Trump here as well.
But yeah, the interference, like I said it yesterday on the live stream that we did. But I mean, I really have never seen anything like this. I mean, I struggle to. I mean, if you go into like developing countries, ex-communist countries, and things like that, yeah, I have seen things like this. Like when Russia tried to interfere in Ukraine before, this present crisis kicked off, 2014 and earlier, when the Russians tried to push the Ukrainians into like coming into their sphere of influence. Okay, I've seen it like that, but I've never seen a democratic country or two democratic countries involved in this kind of thing. I mean, the fact that we're not talking about it more astonishes me. The Americans have decided the outcome of the Canadian election. They've done it.
Yeah.
The Americans have cast the most important vote in this election. We have a prime minister now because of the president of the United States. It's kind of like, if it wasn't the US and they weren't the most powerful country in the world, I think we would almost be considering like drastic action here, possibly even military force.
I think,
Because this is the most extraordinary thing that I've seen in occur between two democracies.
and I think our national media would be in an uproar if it was the other way around. If the winner of this was the Conservatives, that Trump had helped push into the leadership.